Welcome to Bayou Time. I'm Jacob DeGate, and on tonight's program, we'll be talking about the new STEM partnership between Terrebonne General Health System and St. Matthew's Episcopal School. Of course, STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. So, joining us now on the show to discuss a little bit more about this program and the partnership between these two entities is Phyllis Peoples, who's the CEO of Terrebonne General Health System, and we also have Tom Soudier, who is the head of school for St. Matthew's Episcopal School. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.
All right, Tom, or whoever wants to go for it, let me just ask, how did the idea for this partnership come about?
Well, we last year we started a STEM program. Took us a little while to get it off the ground because everything that happened at the beginning of last year. So we kind of hit our stride toward mid-year and began to realize just how beneficial it was for our children. And I realized it was also, being a very small school, we have 128 children, that it's difficult to be able to do that type of program on our own. So, of course, it was just made more sense to reach out to someone in the community to give us a hand. And our chief warden is Robert Alexander, Dr. Robert Alexander. And he sat me down and said, the first person you need to talk to about this is Phyllis Peoples at Terrebonne General. And sure enough, I was able to go in and explain to her what the program was and how we could form a partnership. And she seemed to be very agreeable to it.
All right. And Phyllis, let me ask you, what was the reason for the hospital deciding to commit to this program?
Well, the hospital's always been very engaged in the education of some of our younger children and our older children, of course, that's understood. But we recognize if we invest in our youngest children, that's our future. And if I could back up, the high school age kids we help with athletic training and different things, but we all started getting involved in the elementary schools also because it was important we could teach them about diet and exercise and things, and maybe as they grew up, they could be major advocates. What was intriguing is the STEM program is science and math. A lot of people who tend to lean towards healthcare tend to be very gifted in those particular areas or interest in those particular areas. So it's a neighboring school. We've always done stuff when Reverend Dalfarez was there. Because the hospital is so close, it's overwhelmingly amazing to see some of the kids come walk over, and we do dietary exercises with them. We'll let them be chefs for the day. We'll help them exercise. We're a city within ourselves, and any of our talents that we can help in the school systems, we're more than willing to help.
Well, you talk about the kids walking over to the hospital. All the field trips or out off-campus visits I took as a kid, they always stood out to me. It's something that tends to last with the children. So I think that's a great thing that they'll always remember the hospital when from coming over there to do that work.
Well, it's been a couple of years because, as Mr. Soudier mentioned, going through COVID and Ida, you took 2 years and kind of put things on hold, right? But before that, I tell you, it was really a wonderful, interesting day as we ended up having the kids, and it was a couple of years ago. And they had plates, and they showed them how to make good choices and how much protein, not like a child knows about that, but if you're a kid or me, you're always going for something sweet or,
Sure.
you're going for the snacks more than the good choices. But they let them help choose, and they taught them. And if you just make them familiar, but a lot of the parents got to be engaged too. And look, you teach a parent, you teach a child. So we're really big on all the education things that the schools have to offer, and being with St. Matthew's was a very logical partnership.
All right, Tom, now let me ask you, from an educator's standpoint, where do you think that the students will benefit from this partnership with the hospital?
Well, this is a tremendous opportunity for our kids because, one, it has nothing to do with anything more than the resources that are available through the hospital. I think a lot of people, there's been such a big shift in medicine nowadays where we're talking a lot more about wellness, living a healthy lifestyle, those types of things. We're hoping to be able to have our 3-year-olds understand what it means to have a healthy meal. We've already scheduled a session where our kids are going, I think, mid-September. The older children will physically go on the Terrebonne General campus, and people from Terrebonne General will be coming to us to deal with the kindergarten 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds. So we're going to be addressing 2 major areas. One is nutrition, creating a healthy snack after school. And the other is exercise. What kind of exercise can we expect our children to be able to be doing at home? And of course, as Phyllis said, that's going to be brought home with them because they're going to be excited about having visited the hospital and having people visit them.
All right. So it's not just about education from the standpoint about how you will, in your future career. It's also, how to help you live a healthy life as
Correct.
well.
And actually, that is the biggest thing we see coming out of this. Everything else is just gratis. This is the emphasis of our program, as we want to create healthy patients who aren't afraid to sit with a doctor and say, listen, I have this pain here, which is something I'll never do. Definitely want the children to know that they can go in and create that honest, become a better patient, so to speak.
You just tell me, I guess, the whole reason behind why this program was launched.
We're trying to keep up with today's world. Let me put it this, I guess simpler said, St. Matthew's is a very traditional school. But one of the things that sets us apart is innovation that we have every day in everyday learning. We've launched a number of different programs in the last 2 years. One in particular, the STEM program, allows us an opportunity to challenge our children beyond. It's not all about necessarily being college bound, to be honest with you. At this point, we're trying to get our children to understand how everything fits together in the world. And so that's what STEM does. It gives us that opportunity. If you go in and watch 3-year-olds make their own goo to play with, it's amazing to watch them. We had 4-year-olds last year that were making their own lava lamps.
Wow.
And the 4th graders were actually making their own robotic hands. So when you see children involved that way, all you see is smiles. That's all you see. You see a lot of smiles, a lot of inquiry. They work together as a group, and it's just a better way of learning.
And is this program open to all students at St. Matthew's?
It is. We've actually started with 3-year-olds, and we go all the way up through 7th grade. I do have an 8th grader on campus this year for the first time. We're doing something a little different there. Okay. But for the most part, 3-year-olds through 7th grade, all involved.
Is there anything that parents need to do to enroll their children in the program?
No, it's automatically part of it's one of our enrichments. We have a number of enrichments at St. Matthew's. We teach Spanish. We also have art, PE every day, those types of things. We have a technology center where they learn coding. A lot of wonderful things that kids can get involved in.
Okay, and what are some, I guess, the goals, the hopes? Where do you see this program going in the future, several years from now?
From the hospital's perspective, I can tell you, is the partnership's always advantageous. Anything we could do within the community to help not only our individuals who are working to better our children, but just to educate. And as Mr. Soudier said, he's right on spot, is that the goal is that people understand about their health. They help develop their health from the hospital's perspective. And, as you start to I raise children just like everybody, and the generation of my kids' age or even a little younger is a PlayStation, Xbox,
Sure.
digital generation, which tends to make people more indoors, and it tends to make people be a little bit more sedentary. They're still connecting with their friends and otherwise, but the reality is their movements aren't necessarily, remember, as we're a bit older than you, Jacob, I'll say that, your mom said, go outside, come home when the street lights came on. That was pretty much the rule,
Sure.
right?
That-
Today,
that's
you
how it
would
was.
never do that. And that's, so kids are a little bit more internal, or they're in structured sports or things like that. But you end up having to move them around. And so we teach them about exercise. We teach them about diet. We want them to think of the hospital. It's really not a hospital. It's about wellness and how to live a better life. Because you should really, a hospital is an acute care situation, but it's really an issue of health. It is not an issue of sickness. And I tell people, the hospital isn't only where you come to be sick. It has to also be a line for when you're well. And it's preventative care, and it's a lot of those things that we utilize. And if our kids grow up knowing that, it's an expectation. It's no longer just a requirement.
Yeah, and you do, when talking with some elderly people, some of them will say that they'll never go to the hospital because they're scared of it, because they know somebody that died at a hospital because that's where you need your care. That chances are that might be where you end up passing, but that's not the only reason why hospitals are certainly there.
No, and that's a very dated thought process.
Sure.
And we don't ever call them out. Our seasoned,
Elderly, I'm sorry.
our seasoned population, sometimes are used to doing that, where our millennials and other people don't. They come in, we have exciting things, whether you're there to have a baby, or you're there for prevention, or you're working out, as you said, or nutrition, or education, smoking cessation. There's so many programs that you can watch generationally. Is changing well and wise. It's for 60, 65 and above, how to be healthy, how to not have comorbidities. So it's a lot of great changing things.
Well, certainly,
I don't
certainly.
take all your time.
No,
Go ahead, Mr.
No, but
Tom.
as far as the kids' instruction or them being part of this program, is this during school hours?
during school hours. Everything takes place. You can't separate STEM from the curriculum. There's just so many places we bring things together. So I may have a math teacher, a science teacher, and even an ELA teacher in the same room, and we're doing this STEM activity. And when you start looking at all the aspects of what's going on, it fits all of the different disciplines.
Okay, and it starts and it'll go out throughout the entire school year? Is
Correct,
that
correct. It's a process. Now, we are instituting something new in addition to that, because health is very important. And it fits in because our PE and health department, basically that's one of the things we're looking at. We're creating health portfolios for every child. So yearly, they will track their own health. So if they had the flu, they might go into their calendar and write down that they had the flu on a specific day. If they lose a tooth, they'll come to school and we have a tooth chart. So they go to their own chart and mark the tooth that they lost. In some cases, they want to put down how much the tooth fairy bought them.
Sure.
And it's escalated in terms of inflation, creating a higher cost. But those are the kinds of things that this is bringing to us. We want our children to recognize their own growth patterns. If you look at the difference between a 7th grader and a 9th grader, when you look at that 7th grader when they got to school and the end of 9th grade, it's got to hurt to grow that much.
Sure.
There's no way.
Well, we thank y'all, both for coming on and explaining a little bit more about the program, and I wish y'all the best of luck with it.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, stay tuned for more right here on HTV.